All right. Thank you. Appreciate it.
Some people ask their wife.
Do what?
Some people ask their wife. Other people require their wife to dress
Yeah, there you go. All right. So let's start over just so I have a clear train of thought. Lee Robinson, American Sentinel K9. We've been breeding and training in guard dogs and hog catch dogs, the American Sentinel and the American Pit Bull Terrier since the year 2000. So I have 26 years as a breeder, and for about 10 years prior to that, I got 2 degrees in animal sciences. So I mentioned that because some people that have been following me for a long time may get tired of hearing that because we enter, we make that public every so often, on a fairly regular basis. But there's always new people that come in that don't know my background and who I am and whatnot. And I think that that's important in this particular video. Now, I made a thumbnail for this video that we used AI on, and I did that kind of out of irony because lately I've seen a lot of people using a lot of AI, and that's something that I don't like to do. However, in this case, I think that it's okay to use AI for a few things. One, you're not using it to falsely represent your own skills or knowledge. Okay. If you're using it just as a banner, but the banner is, in this case, you saw a French Bulldog. I have nothing to do with French Bulldogs. You saw a Dutch Shepherd. I have nothing to do with Dutch Shepherds. And then there was another dog it was a black dog, like a Molosser type that had floppy ears. So these 3 dogs in our thumbnail have nothing to do with our program. And therefore, since it's just a topic about the canine industry as a whole, I thought it was okay to use AI for something like this. However, I would not use AI to exaggerate or exemplify our own work. Now, we have one photo that is AI of our dogs where it's like an end of the world type scenario. And I did that just, again, kind of in a mocking photograph and sent it to my son because he's in the picture with family and whatnot. And it was just kind of out of a sense of humor. But yet, I see a lot of people that are making YouTube videos, and the YouTube videos are full of AI photos or AI videos and even AI voice. And this is something that is concerning to me because it's so easy to have the fake it till you make it mentality that you hardly know who you're talking to. And I think this needs to be addressed and called out in our industry because our world is full of the fake it till you make it mentality. And that's not the only issue that's going on. We have several issues in the canine industry that we need to address in-house in our own industry. For example, we hear a lot about genetic testing, and I find it ironic that some of the people that preach about genetic testing the most are people that intentionally breed dogs with the most genetic disease on purpose. And you might think, well, that's good that they're genetic testing if they're dealing with that. I'm talking about they are looking at a test in spite of what they see in front of them. Okay. When you add certain characteristics to a dog's phenotype, right off the bat, you don't need a genetic test to see that you've already screwed up. So, like, for example, take some of these Frenchies, they're breeding them with what they call a rope across the muzzle. All right. They're shortening the muzzle up dramatically. I saw recently one that was a Frenchie crossed with a Shar Pei, and it had all kinds of wrinkles to exaggerate with this rope feature that they talk about. When you're doing stuff that is mutating a dog so much to the point that you're making it a prisoner in its own body, why are you even bothering with genetic testing? That's just an attempt to justify the mutants that you've already created that are prisoners in their own body. These animals can't even walk over and knock over a trash can to get a meal, much less actually be a provider or protector. And you might think, well, dogs don't have to be providers or protectors. You're right. They don't have to be. But if they're just going to be companions, why not make them happy, healthy, semi-athletic companions? A dog that can jump into the car or jump up on the couch if you want it to. And if you don't want to let the dog on the furniture, I have no problem with that. But breeding it where if you do want it on the furniture, you have to reach down and pick it up to put it in your lap because the dog is too crippled to even jump in your lap. I mean, that's ridiculous. Remember, all dogs go back to their wild predecessors, the wolf and the coyote. So and we've mutated them to the point where they are completely dependent upon us. Why were these animals domesticated to begin with? They were domesticated to serve one of two purposes: either to help us provide resources to our unit, our pack, or tribe, whatever you want to call it. That was one of their objectives. And then another one was to protect. So they were to help us provide by finding food and resources, or they were to help us to protect the resources. This is why the dog is the oldest domesticated species on the planet. But yet we have mutated them to a point that they're complete prisoners in their own body. Can you imagine being built like a Dosa Inu or a Neapolitan Mastiff? Let me pull up something here for those of you that don't know what I'm talking about. So let me do a screen share. This picture here that I'm fixing to show you is what's called a Dosa, D-O-S-A, not a Tosa, a Dosa Inu, or the Korean Mastiff. Okay, to produce an animal that looks like this is nothing but sickness. Okay, the dog can't see. Its feet are like snowshoes. The skin problems are going to be seriously plagued with all kinds of issues. The Korean Dosa Inu. Look at the skin here hanging off the legs, just like it's melted. Okay, all right. It's like the dog is melted. The amount of skin that you see hanging off of its neck and off of its legs, it's absolutely disgusting. All right. If we were to see a person like this, whoa, what's going on? Let me stop sharing. So it's just nothing but straight up cruelty. Okay, what's going on over there? All right, let's find another picture here. All right, so this trait here, look at this. This says $10,000 dog. Somebody said it's all about the money. 100% it's about the money. But why would you intentionally produce an animal that looks like this? Oh, we lost some viewers. I guess people didn't like that screen share. So, when they produce a dog that looks like this, and you're producing a dog that's going to have all types of health issues, right? And we need to expect more from breeders. So, this is what they call the rope over the nostrils or over the muzzle. It's ridiculous. So that's one of the things that I wanted to address in this video. I was once upon a time, but not okay. Someone was asking if they were a breeder. All right, next, the canine trainers. I've seen a number of trainers out there that are doing some things that project onto their clients what they themselves want. And what I mean by that is somebody comes to a trainer with their family dog and they say, hey, I would like to have my dog learn some basic obedience. That doesn't mean they want protection work, okay? Or if somebody comes to the trainer and says, hey, I'd like for my dog to learn some basic protection work. That doesn't mean they want to do Schutzen or PSA or some other type of competitive organization that requires you to train extensively for 6 months or a year. A lot of people just need some basic training. And I have seen a number of trainers that okay, keep your dog in a crate, let it stay in the crate. So when you get it out of the crate, it's super pumped. Let them go hungry, feed them out of your hand, make them earn every single thing. And what these trainers are forgetting is the companionship. These people that have their pets because they love their dogs. They are not trying to make a robot that's going to win some sort of military obedience competition. They walk their dog to get the mail. They walk their dog while they're jogging or exercising or just taking a stroll around the neighborhood. That's the level of obedience that they want. To sit, to down, to heel, stay, and come. And a lot of times they don't even need to come because the dog is on leash all the time. Now, some people may take the dog off leash, but be careful about trainers that want to project onto you what they want for themselves. If you just need the basics, sit down, heel, stay, and come, then that you need to make sure that you communicate this to your trainer, because there are some trainers that will say keep the dog in a crate, make sure that it earns every single thing so you can optimize the efficiency of the session and get as much as possible. But what they forget about is the bond. If you don't have a bond with your dog, you're going to miss a lot of the most essential components that make a dog your buddy. Okay. The next, another comment or another thing that I can think of when I'm looking at trainers online is some people don't understand the different types of guard dogs. Okay, I had a phone call today, and I thought it was almost like a spam call, and some of the questions that he was asking were throwing up red flags. He was asking me, he said he wanted a guard dog. Why is the Sorrells dog a good guard dog when pit bulls were supposed to not be involved in protection work? And he already had all these opinions, and I'm thinking to myself, why did you even call me? So I look at the caller ID to see who is this person or whatever, and the caller ID is blocked. So I said, since he already had so many opinions, I asked him point blank. I said, well, you asked me about livestock guardians. I would not recommend our dogs for a livestock guardian. And I was kind of wanting to get off the phone with him because it looked like it was possibly a phony call. And he said, well, we're looking for the exact same thing that you produce. And I was like, well, we don't produce livestock guardians. And as far as guard dogs go, there's sentry dogs, there's personal protection dogs, there's sentry dogs for your home, sentry dogs for your business, sentry dogs for guard dogs, and all of these different types of different guard dogs. And then there's also sport dogs, and then there's police dogs or military dogs. These are all different types of dogs. What exactly are you looking for? And then he brought up the livestock guardian. I was like, well, that's another type. If you have a livestock guardian, you don't want a lot of prey drive because then the animal's going to hunt your own livestock. And then he said, well, we're looking for the same thing. I was like, you didn't even look at my website, buddy. No offense intended, but you didn't even look at the website. And then another aspect of a guard dog that we were looking at was to deal with predatory defense, which our dogs would be good at predatory defense. They would be good for home sentry work. They'd be good for junkyard work. They'd be good for business work. They'd be good for personal protection work if you find the right dog that matches that niche. And if you want to do catch dog, that's cool too. Then you just get one that has less defense and of course is very athletic and good stamina and heat tolerance. But anyway, I could tell that something was phony, and so I just looked at the caller ID. It said caller ID blocked or private ID or whatever it says on your phone. So I asked him his name and got his name. He said his name was Al. And then after he told me his name was Al, I asked him for his phone number so I could call him back. And he was like, oh, no, I'll call you back if this is a bad time. I said, well, you know my name, you know my first name, you know my last name, you know my phone number. I like to have rapport with my customers and build a relationship with them. And I would like to know your number if you're serious, because it seems, and then he didn't want to give it to me. And I was like, well, we got off the phone. And of course, he didn't want to give me his number. So I got off the phone. That was the end of that, because I could tell it just seemed strange. And that kind of precipitated this topic today, because as I see these fake it till you make it YouTube channels that use a ton of AI on their videos and whatnot, all the pictures are AI generated. Some of the videos are AI generated. It just makes me question, do you really have experience doing the stuff that you're claiming to know or do? And this is important to me because any video that we show of our dogs is going to be real. Any pictures of me and our dogs is going to be real. I have one fake AI video of our dogs. I have one fake AI picture, not video, AI picture. It's the one where we're in a Armageddon type situation. It's me and Connor and two dogs jumping up. It was Scratch and Reptar, and Reptar was Connor's dog. We just did it for giggles, just to make a funny picture. That's the only picture we have that's AI generated. Everything else that we share is legit. All right, let's see. Someone says I have no affiliation with, oops, it moved. I have no affiliation with that breeder. I don't know who that is or what's that about. I've seen YouTube trainers talk bad about other trainers whose dogs were well trained. Only reason is because they trained different methods. Positive reinforcement is not the correct way. Positive reinforcement, of course, has a good thing, but a lot of trainers don't know really what positive reinforcement is. They'll use other things. They use a lot of negative reinforcement. They use a lot of positive punishment. They use a lot of negative punishment, and they define the terms incorrectly. It's, there's one channel in particular that he talks about positive and negative reinforcement and positive and negative punishment. He talks about it on a semi-regular basis, but yet he gets the definitions mixed up quite a bit. And just for adding to the viewer's knowledge, positive does not mean good. A lot of people think it means good. When it comes to operant conditioning, B.F. Skinner, the positive means to add. It's like math. It means to give to, and negative means to remove, to take away. So we maybe should call it additional reinforcement or removal reinforcement. That would probably prevent the positive and negative psychology that we tend to think about good and bad, because it's not about good and bad. It's about addition and subtraction. So positive reinforcement means I'm going to give something that the dog wants in exchange for desired behavior. That reinforces the frequency of displaying the desired behavior. Negative reinforcement means I'm going to remove something to reinforce a behavior. Well, how would removing something reinforce a behavior? Well, you have to remove something that the dog doesn't like. So, for example, if let's say that we had a dog that was in a crate, and the dog is barking and barking and barking and barking, and I just ignore it. I don't pay the dog any attention. The dog finally shuts up, and when the dog shuts up and has been quiet for a minute, then I reinforce the quiet behavior and let the dog out of the crate. The dog will maybe eventually learn, if I'm quiet, maybe I can get out of the crate. Or maybe if the dog's quiet, I give it some food. Well, no, that would be positive reinforcement if I gave it food. So letting him out of the crate would be a negative reinforcement, because I have removed the cage. I've removed the restraint. A lot of people use e-collars. The problem with using the e-collar on negative reinforcement is you had to first do positive punishment, meaning you had to apply the compulsion, the shock. So that's positive punishment, is giving the stimulus, and then that's going to be positive punishment in exchange for an undesired behavior, to reduce the undesired behavior. And then when the dog complies, then you remove that stimulus, which is then negative reinforcement. We removed the negative stimulus to reinforce the desired behavior when the dog complies with what we want. So anyway, a lot of people don't really get these terms right. It's sad, but it's the truth. And when I see people on these shows on YouTube or whatever, and the host doesn't know the terms, and they just let the guest say whatever they want, and because this guest is a qualified individual, when that guest messes up some sort of definition, the host may or may not know the definition, and it ends up misleading the public. And this is bad, because the foundation of our knowledge is essential. Okay, so it's very important that when you look for your teachers, you find people that can do or explain what you cannot do or explain. If they can't do it and explain it properly, then they don't know it. Maybe they can do something, but they don't explain it because they don't know the science behind it, but they still have gifted intuition. That's very possible. But then they should demonstrate it instead of talk about it, because the science about it requires articulating what's going on, and demonstration does not require that. Some people just have good intuition on behavioral modification. All right, next, let's see, where was I? I've seen YouTubers talk bad. Yeah, a lot of YouTubers, basically, two trainers agree. The only thing they agree on is what the third trainer is doing right. Salute to you, Lee. Chat, much love all the way from Romania. Thank you very much. I appreciate it. The professional tire kickers, to me, I see this a lot with a lot of the topics that we're talking about, whether it be the genetic testing I was talking about earlier today, or whether it be talking about band dog breeders as a whole, whether it be talking about the history of the band dog, whether it be talking about, I think I said genetic testing, whether it be talking about training, whether it be talking about the evaluation of a protection dog, a sensory dog, or training a protection dog, training a sensory dog, whether it be talking about breeders or handling. People project onto other people what they themselves like, and we have to be careful about that. Also, I want to get into the topic of setting standards for good training. About maybe 3 weeks ago, there was a video that was going around on the social media where there was a trainer that did some things that some people didn't like, and they were called out for it, which, okay, I get that. Calling some people out on the training and having a conversation with that person and discussing it publicly, I think that's good. But threatening to call the police on that because of the training, if there was clear abuse, then yes, that's fine. I get it. But when it was just a matter of opinion, whether it was abuse, because no dogs were harmed, they just thought it could potentially lead to an injury. Like, for example, they kicked the dog with the suit. There was a guy that was in a suit, and he kicked the dog, but he was wearing a big padded suit. So the dog got hit with a pillow. It was basically, he got hit with the leg, but the leg was covered in a pillow, so it didn't injure the dog. But yet the person that was calling him out took major issue with that. And I find it a little bit disturbing, to be honest with you, because the old statement, that if you live in a glass house, don't throw a stone. When we look at things like KNPV, which leads to a lot of the military dogs and the police dogs, probably more dogs are injured in KNPV than probably all of the other sports combined. These dogs come flying in at 30 miles an hour, sometimes faster, and they do high speed sends when the dog is coming one way and the decoy is coming the other way, and you have an immovable object being hit by an unstoppable force. What's going to happen at the point of collision? Well, the dog's jaw is going to break, okay, or the neck's going to break. And so when we see these high speed sends, and that's all cool, fine, and dandy because it's police and military, but yet you're going to complain when somebody kicks a dog with a padded suit up a leg. I found that to be a little bit disingenuous. I understand if there was abuse, really clear abuse involved, then I get it. But have a private conversation with that person, provide them mental coaching or canine coaching, and tell them the concerns that you have. We've actually seen some serious abuse before with various trainers that they didn't mean to abuse the animal. And thankfully, the dogs apparently recovered fine, but they were just inexperienced trainers. And so I contacted the trainer. If they listened to my input, great. If they didn't listen, then I would talk to their organization regulator and say, hey, this person, here's a video of this. This person wasn't really doing something that was safe, and it was done unprofessionally. The dogs could have seriously got injured. Showed them the video, and then the people in charge of that organization would handle it in-house. And that's the way this type of stuff should be addressed. Trying to get people in trouble because you see something that's concerning that maybe you do or don't understand, I disagree with that. And if you're going to call people out for professionalism, then also make sure that you yourself are professional. So, and the people that I'm talking about are people that I respect. And so it may be a bit offensive to them that they may know who I'm talking about. They may not. I'm not trying to call names. I'm trying to instead address the issues. I'm not trying to attack people. I'm trying to attack the traits and behaviors that we see that we don't need to see in our industry. We don't need to see tons of foul language. We don't need to see drinking and alcohol. We don't need to see drug use. We don't need to see violence that does lead to injury. These are things that we need to address in the industry. We can put pressure on a dog with things that are physical but not harmful, and we can also put pressure on a dog with things that are mental but not irrevocable, completely harmful. We don't want to cause PTSD in a canine where it's going to be able to not do its job later on in life. You don't want to do permanent damage and make somebody's dog take a major setback. Yeah, and some of these people are not tire kickers. Some of them are, but some of them aren't. Some of them are really good at what they do, but they project what they want to see, or they project themselves onto others, and that may be bad. Marquez, thank you. I appreciate it very much. I appreciate the support. Um, yeah, so a strange caller. I'm of the opinion there's more strange folks around this world, and when dealing with the public, sometimes it pays to be careful. Yeah, and some of these people, like the guy that called me today with his caller ID blocked and asking me questions, and yet he knew all the answers. I was like, well, if you already have all the answers, what did you call me for? Okay, I mean, I'm not trying to be rude here, but what did you call me for? Because it's taking my time. It almost seemed like he was working for the ASPCA or something. Um, and I just found it really strange. You had all these opinions of why would you take a Sorrels dog and do protection work? I was like, well, because one of the first titled pit bulls in Schutzen was a Sorrels dog. One of the first pit bulls titled in French Ring was a Schutzen dog. That they'd done really well in protection work. If you go back to the Sporting Dog Journal back in the 70s and 80s, there was people that were talking about using pit bulls as protection dogs, despite what they want to tell you today. Um, the pit bull can do what many other breeds can do, and then a lot of times do it better, or at least just as good, and then turn around and whip those dogs as well. So the amount of health and athleticism and ability and trainability and malleability, stamina, heat tolerance, gameness, determination, whatever you want to call it, it's there when you find the right bloodline. And that's why I like the Sorrels dogs. But this guy had all the opinions and all the questions, but he wanted to stay anonymous. I was like, I mean, what did you call me for? So if you want to just waste my time, then you can pay me for my time. Otherwise, I mean, he's like, well, he said, I'm looking for the right dog. Well, I don't want to deal with the people that you're not looking for the right dog if you're anonymous. Okay. You didn't call me to get a dog for me if you're anonymous. I'm going to need to know your name, your address, your phone number, and your purpose. And if you're not going to tell me your address and phone number, we're obviously not going to do business. So don't pretend like we are. Okay. Also, let's look at the next one. How many bloodlines of pit bulls are in your band dogs? Well, we basically just have, for the most part, 2. There is a third well, there's more than that. I mean, realistically, we have Sorrels dogs, we have Mayday dogs, and Mayday is Red Boy Jocko Bolio Tombstone. So you could say that's 1, or you could say it's 4. Depends on if you want to call it Mayday or if you want to call it Red Boy Jocko Bolio Tombstone. And the Sorrels, you could call it Sorrels, but you could also call it Tudor Carver or Corvino, or the Davis Boomerang dog. There's bloodlines in all these. There's no single family of pit bull that's going to dominate. We have a little bit of Gary Hammond stuff coming in through snaps, but that's very, very little, probably less than 2%. So it's not worth talking about. And then you got some outcrosses that are running in any of those dogs if you go back far enough. Here a branch here, a branch there. But basically, the main thing when you're looking for a good dog, you find a bloodline that's a good bloodline. Then you find a breeder that's known for consistently producing high quality dogs of that bloodline. That's the second thing. And then the third thing is to find a dog that expresses those traits. So you want a bloodline, a man, and then the dog. And that's what I would look for. Thoughts of having any sentinel shows? Yeah, we will probably do that after we get our building done. And that's something that we'll discuss. I'm going to be releasing a video here. Be sure to check it out on moving forward in spite of possibly making a mistake. So, when we've been a little bit paralysis through analysis as we've been analyzing exactly what we're going to do with the building. We had some problems with the construction thing, dealing with some people that were supposed to be the contractors, and we're going to be releasing a video about that. We'll get to these other questions a little bit later. Let me get back to the topic that I wanted to discuss. Y'all keep the questions coming, but understand if I don't jump on them immediately. So next, genetic testing. We discussed that briefly. We discussed professionalism in the canine industry when it comes to trainers and training and handlers making sure that you understand what your customers are looking for. Can't remember the other things that I was going to discuss. I guess I'll go back to your questions. Oh, no, I know what I was going to say. So we had a guy call us. It's been a while. He'll probably, if you watch, he likes to watch our videos and then make commentary about them. Called me up and wanted to make a lot of very unprofessional expression of emotional behavior, and yet threatening people, saying, you want to call yourself a gatekeeper of this information. And I was like, well, it was about the Swinford band dog. And I was like, well, I kind of am a gatekeeper on that, because it was the photos and documents were given to me personally by the person that owned the documents, and they wanted to be released in copyrighted information, and that's what they wanted, and they gave it to me. So yeah, I am a gatekeeper. And if you want to call that a derogatory statement of some type, if you want me to think that that's derogatory to call me a gatekeeper of information that was given to me in confidence, have at it, buddy. Have at it, because they gave it to me in confidence because they want that information released professionally. And that offended this individual. But we are going to release some of that information here soon, and we're going to present some of that information in a way that tells the truth a little bit about the Swinford band dog, because there's a lot of misinformation about that. Look, we've been doing this a long time, 26 years of putting it out there in the real world, and 10 years prior to that for studying. So 36 years in this industry. We need a higher level of professionalism. Somebody asked, was your dogs with the more mastiff more obedient during training? No. The pit bull is way easier to train. And I've got let me find this video. We'll actually pull this video up. Give me just a minute. I'll share a video here. We'll do a review of one of my own videos. This is a video from a long time ago. This is about 20 years ago. All right, let me do a screen share. So this video that I'm about to show was a Sorrells and Hammonds cross American Pit Bull Terrier that we produced. And the trainer that this dog was sent to was, I don't understand at all what was going on, because they said, man, I can't teach this dog anything. And it really seemed weird to me, because when we got the dog back, it was super skinny, severely neglected, and the dog knew nothing. And it was a little bit timid. And I could tell that this was a compulsion-based trainer. Okay, you need to read your animal and develop a bond with your animal. And so in 1 week, this dog went from knowing nothing to doing what we have here in the video. The dog knew nothing. I sent the trainer the video after 1 week, and they're like, how in the world did you teach this dog this much obedience in 1 week? Let's watch the video. Now, it's not a finished dog by any means, but this is off-leash obedience in 1 week. His top side is Sorrells Captain Skip. The bottom side is Hammond's Blood, the bitch named Snaps.
Sit.
Now, let me pause the video here for just a second. This dog over here to my left, the one it's on our right on the screen with the fence behind it, that dog is in heat, okay? The black dog here on the other side is his brother, the one I'm working with, his brother. So we have two game bred dogs, and then we have a sentinel bitch in heat. You don't see me do a lot of obedience training because I have 30 dogs, but honestly, obedience training is not that hard.
Good.
But you have to have a relationship with your animals. Build trust.
Sit. Heel.
So I'm working with the dog. The dog's name is Pac-Man. This is not the Sentinel Pac-Man. This is a pit bull named Pac-Man. And that black dog behind me was a dog named Deacon.
Heel.
Now that's Chief. This is his other brother. Look at the size difference between Chief and Pac-Man. Pac-Man is only about 50 pounds, and Chief right here, this is when he's about a year old. He was probably about 62, 65 pounds. When he was 18 months, he was like 78 pounds. So you can see the dog messed up a little bit. I guess they're just training for a week.
Good boy. Should have had the tongue on the other side. Good boy. Heel. Heel. Heel.
Now, before some animal rights activist comes around and sees all these dogs on posts, this is not where these dogs live. These dogs are put here for training session and distraction. That's what they're here for, is to distract this dog. And then we work with each one of these dogs on these posts little by little. The toy in my hand is a reward. When he gets in position, it does exactly what I want. I occasionally give him the opportunity to release stress from the training, having a bite reward or even obedience with the reward could also be a hot dog or something like that. Sometimes we use food, sometimes we use toy. I'm going to tell him to load up in the truck. So he jumped up in the truck. And this is a demonstration of what I'm talking about with the dog. Let's rewind that. All right, so you can see the dog jumps in the truck. I don't bend over. I don't pick him up. I don't throw him in the truck. He just jumps in. This is what I mean by breeding dogs that are capable. Why make a dog a prisoner in its own body where it can't move properly?
She's in heat, by the way, even in the obedience. Or during the obedience. She's in heat right now.
So now we're going to work back there a little bit on the backside, and we're just going to play with it. Actually, do I have him on the back side right there? It doesn't look like I do. No, he's not on the back side. I'm going to put it on it, I think. So now he's on the back side.
Boy.
If you have a dog with drive, food drive, and prey drive, training is easy. If you're using compulsion to motivate your dog, then you're actually using compulsion to not motivate your dog. You're shutting down undesired behavior instead of building desired behavior. I think it's better to build. I think it's better to build desired behavior than it is to break undesired behavior. We'll come back to that in a minute. Sorry. All right, so there you go. So here we do some classical conditioning. Let's see. That may just be a. We'll actually go ahead and go back to the StreamYard. All right. Next question. Peace. Thank you for watching. I appreciate you coming in. Someone asked if I ever thought about using Dogo Argentina. No, we've talked about that before. When we've seen Dogo hog hunt, they you might see them do well when they're not getting hammered, but after they get hammered a couple of times, they generally speaking tend to quit. Also, the Dogo Argentina is plagued with cancer, and I don't like white because I believe that the dog should be camouflaged. White would be good if you're in the Arctic region, but if you're in a non-Arctic region, having a dog that blows its cover, you know, what military uses white that's not in the Arctic region? As a hunter or a protector, in either case, be camouflaged. The reason why people that want white dogs for hog hunting, that their justification is so they don't stab or shoot their dog. I don't know why that would be a problem because honestly, um, no matter what color the dog is, if I see the dog, I know it's a dog. I'm not going to confuse my dog with a pig. And you don't need to be pulling the trigger on something that you haven't identified. So, um, anyway, if you're the type of hunter that shoots movement, then put your gun down and go learn some gun safety. All right. Do you have any thoughts on psychological versus physical testing on the dogs? Yes, absolutely. I think what's one of the best tests that you can do is first you teach the dog how to do the work. Then once the dog does the work, then you can do physical tests of in a multitude of ways, and some of those ways are psychological. So you may have to test the stamina, you may have to test the agility, you may have to test the pain tolerance. These are all physical, but you start to get into mental when a dog is running out of oxygen and can't breathe very well, and you continue to ask it to work. Now you're testing the determination, and then also the decoy here in the picture behind me. He likes to use some cans on tassels, and he'll rattle those cans that tests their mental ability to see if they get nervous with things. Then we use like a plastic bat that's got rattles in it. It doesn't hurt the dogs, but it's a physical and mental evaluation as well. But then when the dog excels all those tests and passes all those tests, then you can also do hip x-rays, or you can do what's called a pre-exhaustion test. Now, a pre-exhaustion test, in my opinion, is a great way to really see if you're dealing with a legitimate dog. And it's not something that's done very often with most dogs. But basically what this means is once the dog knows what to do, then you're going to go exercise your dog and get the dog exhausted. So now you're going to bring the dog back to a protective situation, but the dog is already exhausted. It's pre-exhausted. And so once you have the dog previously exhausted, then you have check the dog's determination to see if it will still seek engagement against a threat, or will the dog, when it can't really breathe as well because he's tired and he wants to catch his air, will the dog then try to evade because he knows he doesn't have a lot of fight in him since he's trying to breathe? Well, this is a pre-exhaustion test, which kind of taps into the gameness evaluation. It's a way of checking their determination to a degree. Now, you can't do that with all types of dogs. Don't do this with a super muscular dog like an American Bulldog with a short muzzle. You're going to overheat your dog, and you can take him too far where the dog can actually pass away because it won't be able to recover properly. So you don't want to make your dog overheat. All right. Make sure you're being aware. That requires a level of experience that you don't see very often. Yeah, they choose white because it's easier to see in the bush, but that's why I don't want white. I don't want to, we have tracking collars now. So if you want to know where your dog is, buy a tracking collar and have an animal that is not going to be busted by a person that doesn't have a tracking collar that's just going to, shoot a stray dog, or by a hog, busted by the hog or the game that you're hunting. There's no predator that has lots of white. The white-tailed deer keeps its tail down over its rump unless it's running away, and then it will pull its tail up, and that's so the young can see it as they run off. The young follow the mother. The using white blows your cover. I just would never want that on a protection dog. Our military, SWAT doesn't go in, or excuse me, not SWAT. The Navy SEALs don't go in with wearing white. The Army Rangers don't go in wearing white, not unless they're in an Arctic region. So, camouflage is important to a hunter and protector. All right, that's my opinion. You're welcome to disagree. I get it. I understand different strokes for different folks, and you should do what you like as long as the animal's healthy. That's what matters most. Thanks for the great information. Hey, it's my pleasure. Well, anyway, let's see. Do you believe a good English Bull Terrier improves prey drive when mixed with Mastiffs? Well, I'm sure it would if you have a good one. And the Bull Terrier may also bring a little bit of defense and rank. I don't really like rank drive in a family companion guardian because of the dominance nature of a rank-driven dog. But At the same time, it does have its benefit in training, especially when you're dealing with a rookie decoy. A rookie decoy can posture, and a rank-driven dog will respond to that very easily. They're easy to train. All right. Well, I hope that answers a few thoughts or addresses a few thoughts that I had. Y'all take care, and thank you for joining us tonight, and have a blessed day. See you around.